Is your workplace toxic? Do you know how to deal with toxic personalities? I'm gonna go over toxic personalities like the narcissist, the passive-aggressive, and the bully, for example, the complainer, how you should deal with them, what you can say to them to preserve your health and your career at work. The narcissist would say, don't you dare leave this video. The complainer would say, oh my God, I can't believe I had so much work and you're gonna leave this video. And the passive aggressive would say, okay, it's up to you. You don't know what you're gonna miss. And Maggie would say, stay there. We're gonna be back in a second. First, we have to make a difference between a demanding boss and a toxic environment. They are very different. Toxic environments drain your motivation, hinder your performance, and even cause harm to your health. So it's very different from having a demanding boss. So first, let's make that distinction. So what is a toxic environment? It is an environment where dysfunction, manipulation, or negativity becomes the norm. It often leads to chronic stress, poor communication, and high turnover. It is an unhealthy work culture, and that is usually prompted by toxic personalities. Now, I'm gonna give you just the most common ones, and after that, I'm gonna teach you some sentences on some ways of dealing with them. First one, the narcissist. All of you have already met a narcissist. You can imagine working with someone like Trump. Imagine Trump being your manager.
I am happy that I could help you all to achieve your goals.
I want a presentation about this on my table.
So it is not easy because they crave attention, they crave admiration. They often ignore feedback. And they might even take credit for other people's work. So it is very challenging to deal with a narcissist. Having said that, it is very important to say that people are not just narcissists. They are so much more. I know at least a couple of them, and I love both of them. They are not just authoritarian or self-serving. They are also very loyal. They are very kind. It is a matter of building trust with them. Bear that in mind before you judge a person. The second most common personality is the passive-aggressive. Now, passive-aggressive people avoid conflict, but they show their frustration using snarky comments, the silence treatment.
Can you review this for me by the end of the day?
Sure, absolutely. Just need to squeeze it into my super chill schedule.
Wow, I thought you'd get it, but okay.
And sabotage. Most of them use sabotage. The personality that often leads to a lot of demotivation is the complainer. Now, to the complainer, nothing works. Everything is everyone's fault.
Another change? Seen this movie before. It always ends badly.
Maybe it'll work this time. Let's give it a shot.
It's pointless. This place is a mess.
So it is very hard to deal with this level of negativity. And the bully. Now, the bully wants you to do what they want you to do. They force you to do their jobs or part of their jobs. They are very intimidating.
You messed this up again? Unbelievable!
But
I tried to follow the instructions, but if you can't handle pressure, maybe this isn't the job for you.
Really tough to deal with personalities like that. Dealing with challenging personalities doesn't mean you have to become aggressive or rude. I quite disagree with that. I think a lot of people tend to lose themselves when they are inserted in a toxic environment and become toxic themselves. I think we should keep our professionalism and survive that, trying to preserve our mental health. So for that, I'll give you some sentences. So let's say the narcissist. The narcissist is trying to take credit for somebody's work. And you could say something like, I'm glad the project turned out well. It was definitely a team effort. So you highlight that you understand that the person is taking credit for your work, but you highlight the team effort. That's a very nice, elegant manner. And the message, believe me, the message is going to be conveyed. Another way to say that would be, I'd be happy to walk you through each contribution if needed. So these sentences are telling the narcissist, I know you took credit for my work, and I hope you don't do it anymore, without having a confrontation. You don't want to confront a narcissist. Narcissists are people who hate dissent. They hate to be disagreed with. If you have a different opinion, the best approach would be to first agree with them, saying something like, that's a very interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that. Just thinking out loud here, what if we, and then you give your suggestion. Disagreeing is upfront with a narcissist is going to backfire. So first agree, understand, give the narcissist what he or she needs, which is attention, admiration, and then you give your input. Now, passive-aggressive, I know they are very hard because they say things, they do things in a way in which you feel like there's nothing you can say because they are not really being aggressive or rude to you. So it's very complicated to do that. They throw you zingers, right? For zingers, for innuendos, I've always adopted a very transparent manner of dealing with them. I simply say, I'm sorry, what do you mean? I always ask them. Because if there is something they want to tell me, I think they should be honest about it and just tell me. But if they are just being snarky, if you confront them with a question in which they have to explain themselves, I guarantee you that they might try to do it again next time, but eventually they will stop doing that, with you at least, okay? Another way that passive-aggressive people might hinder the atmosphere at work is by the silent treatment, ignoring your inputs, ignoring your emails. So if somebody is not replying your emails, you should, instead of first escalating, which is something that I've noticed people do very often, I would say that the best way is for you to write in a message, oh, I've noticed you missed my email again, and I was wondering if you could provide me the reply, etc., etc. So you say it. For passive-aggressive people, you have to describe the situation as is. Don't allow them to keep doing that to you in that manner. Show them that whenever they try to do something like that, you are gonna ask them to explain themselves, so in a professional manner. So just say, what do you mean? I'm sorry. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't follow you. Okay? So that could work very well. It has worked with me. Complainers are tough because whatever you suggest, whenever there is something new, they are never going to be happy. So focus on the solutions with them. Acknowledge their negativity. So if they complain about, we always try something new and then nothing works. You say, well, I hear you. I understand how you feel, but shall we focus on the solution that we can control? Focus on the actions you can control and always call the complainer's attention to the actions you can all take. Don't dwell on the complaint too much. So try to make it a little shorter and they might stop doing that with you at least. And for the bully, it's like I told my son when he was a kid, that for a bully, you have to face the bully. Unfortunately, you have to face. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to confront the bully aggressively. When he criticizes or he or she criticizes you, you would say something like, I'm sorry, what are you criticizing exactly? My attitude or the project? You know? So you have to call on that. You have to confront the bully. So let's say the bully is constantly interrupting you in a meeting. So you could say, I'll wrap up my thoughts and then I'd love to hear your inputs. This is a nice way to say, let me finish. Because if you say, let me finish, the atmosphere at the meeting might get a little too heated. So you could say, I'll wrap up my thoughts and I'd love to hear your inputs. Or say something like, let's make sure all the voices are heard before we move on. That's a very nice one too. Surviving in a toxic environment, it is about setting boundaries. We have to understand what our limits are so that we are not jeopardized in our careers, in our health. So it is our own obligation to set those boundaries. And setting those boundaries mean that you have to say things like, just for clarity, what do you mean by that? You know? So say, could you, I would appreciate it if you could reply my email within the next 48 hours. You see? And if the situation escalates into a certain level, you could say, let's revisit this with HR involved, and so we can all get aligned. I think that this is a very transparent manner, making it very professional without causing confrontations, unnecessary confrontations. But remember, setting boundaries is your responsibility. We cannot control external factors. We cannot control what people do, how they're going to cross our lines, but it is our responsibility to say, this is my limit, please do not cross this line. If you like this video, click that button. Leave your comments. This video was a result of a comment that was left for us, and we are always trying to improve our content. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.